Okay, so welcome to Smarter Business Processes open demo on our Smarter Dropdown List Manager, centralizing the management of your drop-down lists. So just a little bit about Smarter Business Processes. We have been around since 2012, helping clients to maximize on their Smartsheet investments. We provide consulting services, training services, and API development services. So within the consulting, you could come to us to ask us to help you with determining your business processes, and then we would extend the support to design and build your Smartsheet solutions around those processes that have been established. Training services, we offer on-site training, or most popular is our bite-sized remote training workshops. They're 90 minutes in length. They're conducted over either Zoom or Teams, but the collaborative nature of a Smartsheet means that we can offer some training, hands-on experience, as if I'm there in the room with you, which is really good. And lastly, our API development services. We just feel that we respond to our clients that say, you just want a little bit extra from Smartsheet. Smartsheet is an excellent tool, but it would be good if it could. And then they come up with scenarios of what it could be good if we could. And that's where we develop some apps and controls. And the control app that we're looking at today is our Smarter Dropdown List Manager. So this one is answering the client call out for a centrally managed way of controlling drop-down list values within drop-down list columns. So I'm going to hand over to David. He's going to be exploring the functionality of Dropdown List Manager, explaining some configuration settings that would be needed to control this app, and then discuss the use of the admin sheet. Then we're just opening up the session to questions and answers from our audience. So if I could hand over this screen share now to David.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. I'll just take that over now. So what we're looking at on our screen now is the actual control panel for the Dropdown List Manager. So each of these rows within this session or this screen represents a single configuration of drop-down lists. And what we're doing here, we're specifying our source. This is where we're getting the data from, where we're going to pick that information up as the source of the drop-down lists. And that's usually a sheet or a report within Smartsheet. So we specify that in this first column. The second column is we're defining the source column within that source sheet or report as well. So obviously there could be multiple different columns within a source, and we're just telling it which one we want to pick up from. The destination is where we're sending that information to. Now the destination is kind of where we set the scope of the product. So we can set that to send the information directly to a single sheet if we wanted to, which gives us really good focus. But of course, we can set the destination to a folder or even an entire workspace. And the advantage there, of course, it means that if we've got a workspace with hundreds of sheets in there that need the same update, we can do that with one single configuration within our app. So we just set it up to workspace level, and every sheet within that workspace or folder will receive those updates. And then obviously within the destination, we set the destination column name as well. And there's a few other options we'll come back to in just a moment. So I'm going to have a quick look at the app in use. And let's say for the sake of our example here, we've got a couple of just standard project sheets with a few tasks and start dates and things like that. What we can see for each of these is we've got a number of columns in common between those sheets. And what we're going to look at for our example is the region column. So obviously, if we've just got two sheets, it's quite easy. We just go into the region here and we make a change to that drop-down list information. And we can do that once, twice, or so on. Of course, when you've got hundreds of sheets to update, that's where trying to do that manually becomes a real issue. And it takes up so much time, and it can also bring in data inconsistencies as well. So with the Dropdown List Manager, we don't have to do these manual updates. What we can do is we can update it in a single place, and then Dropdown List Manager will push those updates to these value lists wherever we want it to go. So the way that we make that control change is that we go to our source. Now, for our demonstration, all of our drop-down lists are being fed from this single sheet, the drop-down lists data sheet. But of course, the data can come from anywhere within your Smartsheet environment. So you can point it at any report or sheet that you have already. So what we're looking at here, of course, is our region column. So if, say, we wanted to add a new region to our system, we simply add it to this column. And once it's there, we just hit the Save button. Now, in normal operation, the Dropdown List Manager will launch automatically every 10 minutes or so. So really, that's kind of all we need to do at this point, is to add that data and save. Within 10 minutes, that data will be picked up and started to get rolled out to all of those various sheets that we've set it to. Now, obviously, being in a demo, we don't want to wait for 10 minutes. So we'll just pop back to our control panel, and we've got a rather convenient Run button here at the top. So once we hit that Run button, it will just launch everything immediately. So all of our configurations get pushed through straight away. So if we pop back to our project sheet, what we'll see in a moment, once we do a refresh on this page, is that the region column should be updated. So if we do a refresh now, this should be the same for all of the sheets that we've included in here. What we'll see now is that we've got Central has now appeared within our drop-down list value list here. Okay, so that's kind of in its simplest form, that's what we do, how the process actually works. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that we can pull the source information from a report as well as from sheets. Now, this is important where we've got data that we need to filter. Say, for example, we've got a list of, I don't know, maybe suppliers, but we want to only pull the active suppliers. Well, we can use a Smartsheet report to do that. So we've got a sample of that here in a different format. We're going to use the assigned to here. This assigned to list in our drop-down lists source data here covers all sorts of different email addresses. But in our example, what we would like to do for the Sunhill Club project, we want to only pull certain email addresses into that assigned to column. And you can see we've achieved that. And all of these are just from the sunhill.co.uk domain name. So the way that we achieve this, of course, is just to use a Smartsheet report. And this is what the report could look like. So it's a standard Smartsheet report. Obviously, the sheet, that's the source sheet for this, is, again, it's that drop-down lists data that we were looking at a moment ago. But what we're doing is applying a filter, and we're saying we only want data where assigned to contains the word Sunhill. Now, of course, the filters could be as simple or as complex as you need, but as long as we can get the relevant information into a single column, we can use that information as our source. And then what we do within our configuration sheet or session here, you can see here for our region column, we can see that we've actually got that set up in here for, it's using the Sunhill report. I beg your pardon, for the assigned to, it's using the Sunhill report as the source for that information. Okay, so the way that we actually configure the system is, like I say, through this control panel. And the way that we do that is that we can use the built-in picker. We've got a little picker icon here. So let's say we're going to look at the assigned to information for the Sunhill Club project. So we would just click on our little picker, and that opens up the browser so that we can access our entire Smartsheet environment. So if we go into here and look down to where we know that the source information is, that's our drop-down list data sheet that we've mentioned already. That will be driving a lot of our configurations. But for this one, we're going to be using the Sunhill report here. So once we've selected that, it's then asking us to select the relevant column. So what we'll do is we'll go into that. Now, that report only has the one appropriate column, and that is assigned to, so we can choose that from the list. Okay, and then we set the destination in a very similar way with the picker. So we can go into here, and we can go into the workspace and into the folder that we're working on. Okay, now we could choose the Sunhill Club project, and this indeed is how we've got that configured at the moment. But it's at this point that you can really broaden the scope of the process. And what you can do is choose the parent folder or even that entire workspace. And you can use that through this picker here. So we'll just go back to setting that to the club project. Once we've selected the destination sheet or indeed workspace or folder, we then just choose the destination column name, which of course is assigned to in this case as well. So it really is as simple as that. We're really just defining where we're getting the information from, where we're pushing it to, and then saving that within our configuration. So there's a couple of other options to mention here. We've got this summary field. Now, you probably know within Smartsheet, you've got a handy area on there called the sheet summary. And a sheet summary, you can access that through this section here on the right-hand side of your page. But the sheet summary itself can contain drop-down lists. And we can see we've got our region column here, and we've got our lead consultant column there as well. And what we're doing is, by using that particular option, this is the summary field, we've got that set to yes for lead consultant, we can tell the system that we want to push that information through to the sheet summary rather than a column within the main sheet. Okay, the split on line break is a function where we can, if we've got data in our source where it happens to be stored with multiple rows within a cell, if that makes sense. Say we've got extra data in here, so we basically got a hard break inside that cell. We can tell our system to recognize that line break as a definer between those values. So we could say we want to have central and northeast as separate values, even though they're in the same cell. So if you've got data that's structured in that way, we can make use of that still by setting that split on line break to yes. Okay. The last option that we have here is the keep order. Now, this is to do with maintaining the sort order of the source information. Now, the default is no. Now, what that means is we typically, the information that comes through reports or from the sheets that we have could be in all sorts of different orders. So typically what we'd like to do is to turn that into an alphabetical list. So we tend to say we won't keep the order by default. We're going to turn that into a more searchable, easier to find, alphabetized list of options. But sometimes, of course, you might want to maintain the order from your source. And what we have here is a good example. We've got north, south, east, and west. Of course, that makes sense to have it displayed that way. But of course, if we wanted to, if we didn't have that maintained, it would come up in alphabetical order. So in this one, we have maintained the display order for that source. But for the Sun Hill Club project, which I haven't refreshed incidentally, so we won't be seeing central on there at the moment, but we can see that is now in alphabetical order. So it gives us those options. We've got the choice there whether we want to sort it by the same as a source or sort it alphabetically. Okay. So the last thing to show you is the actual admin sheet itself. So all of these configuration rows that we see here, they're just stored inside a Smartsheet sheet. And we can see that here. So it's quite technical. There's a lot of different technical information in here. We've got all sorts of IDs, information in there, which is really defining these jobs. But we also have some really useful runtime information as well. In fact, you can just see it's literally just ran the process and it's updated these last run information with the latest time. And of course, we've got status in there and last run note. So if there are any glitches, or maybe you've got a column with the right name, but it's not configured as a drop-down, for example, it will show up here as an alert, and it will give you that information to show you that something's not quite right. Okay. And then finally, the last bit in here that we have, which is really quite useful, we have this run column. Now, this gives us a collection of URLs. And if you run that URL, what it will do, it will run that particular configuration and launch it immediately. And that's really useful because you can share that URL within your system. You can put it on a dashboard if you wanted, or have it as a bookmark. And it just means that if you're updating a particular source very often, but you need it to roll out very quickly, you can update it and just run that URL, and that just pushes that update through immediately. And we also have within the own sheet summary of this configuration sheet, we've got another URL here, which if you use that, it will run everything in one go. Very similar way that we did earlier, where we just hit the run button up here. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. That's the way we configure it, and that's how it actually works. So I'll pass back to Debbie now, and we can open up to questions and answers.
Okay, David, there's no questions coming through from the floor, so I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone attending today, and I will stop the recording.